つか。なら私たちと勝負です。
Hey everyone, it's Mark. This is my recap for Pokemon Horizons episode 16 with Quaxly, I Can Do It. This was the 1248th episode of the Pokemon anime, and a lot of people are saying this was the best episode of Horizons so far. Let's talk about the episode and see just how good it was. We pick things up right where the previous episode left off, with Liko having regained her memories and reunited with the Rising Volt Tacklers. Freed thinks the person who stole Liko's pendant is nearby. I still don't know why Freed thinks that, but whatever, there are more important things to talk about right now. Freed throws Dot a Pokeball so she can catch Quaxly, and yeah, I'm kind of with Liko on this one. Dot hasn't caught Quaxly yet. Dot says she never really felt motivated to be a trainer, but that's changed now, as Dot tries her best to throw the Pokeball. Yeah, it's embarrassingly weak, but no matter. Quaxly is excited to be captured and jumps up to hit the Pokeball. And just like that, Dot has made her first capture and is officially a Pokemon trainer. She calls out her partner. This is all a very sweet moment, and the other Pokemon congratulate Quaxly on becoming Dot's partner. She gets all sappy for a second and even specifically addresses Quaxly as her partner. Aw, what a heartwarming moment. Swiftly moving on though, the group heads to the middle of Lavincia, where they had planned to meet up with the rest of the Rising Volt Tacklers. Freed leaves the kids on their own though, choosing to pursue their target from the skies. Fuecoco is all fired up to see Charizard in action, but I hate to break it to you, you're never going to be able to fly, Fuecoco. Okay, now they're asking the same questions I'm thinking. Why would the person who stole Liko's pendant be stalling for time? I can't say I loved their explanation here, but our heroes hypothesize that they must not be fleeing by car or Pokemon, and when they overhear a nearby ad for cruises, they suddenly think that the pendant thief is leaving via boat. Liko calls Freed to tell them their theory as they all run towards the port, and yeah, Dot is not a fan of all this running. I thought this was a pretty funny line. Maybe if she wasn't running in Snorlax slippers, they would have made it there on time, but the ferry leaves without them. Freed is able to catch up to it thanks to Charizard, and all the passengers run for cover when they see him charging in. I thought it was hilarious when Freed goes, is there anyone suspicious here? And oh, would you believe it? A very suspicious man appears, challenging Freed to a battle. How convenient. Cap is ready for action though, and this rando sends out a Bisharp to combat him. We cut away from most of this battle, first checking in with these guys, who want the kids to stay safe while they try and gather some more info. Then there's a quick scene of Ludlow, his only involvement in the entire episode, and it's not super noteworthy. Back with these three, Dot is asking about Liko's pendant. She doesn't really know anything about the pendant itself, other than that it means a lot to her. That's enough for Dot. She wants to help get her friend's precious treasure back. Oh yeah, this random truck drives past them at one point, not that it's important or anything, even though Quaxly does make a note of it. Suddenly, something in Liko's bag starts glowing, and it turns out to be Arboliva's ancient Pokeball. They remember how Rayquaza's Pokeball reacted to Liko's pendant, and they realize her pendant must be nearby. Oh, it was probably in that truck that just drove past them. The three of them split up to look, which is kind of reckless, but Quaxly must have seen where that truck went because it leads Dot right to the cargo ship that the truck is hiding out on. They run onto the ship, but there's no time for this right now as we check back in with Freed and his battle against Rando McGee back on that ferry. Freed recognizes that this can't be the same person he battled before, and I like how Cap agreed with Freed even though he wasn't even at the last battle, so how would he know? Anyways, one Thunder Punch later and Bisharp is down for the count. Freed starts threatening the poor guy. We usually don't see our heroes get this aggressive, but Freed backs off once he realizes this guy is just a pawn. He doesn't actually have anything useful to say. I guess Spinel must have just paid him off to draw their attention away. Just then, Murdoch calls Freed to say that he can't reach Dot, and they suspect it's the pendant thief jamming her signal. Freed jets off as fast as possible, sensing that Dot might be in danger. Of course, we know Dot is on the same ship where Spinel is, and yeah, sure enough, here's his BEM. It starts trying to hypnotize Dot, but Quaxly saves the day by flying in with a wing attack. Dot realizes that her phone signal is jammed and she's probably in a bad spot, and yep, she's surrounded now. Great. Dot keeps her composure though and calls for Quaxly to shoot a water gun straight up into the sky, not to battle Spinel's Pokemon, but to get the other's attention, and it accomplishes exactly that. They run after the cargo ship right as it starts to leave, and while the others make it on fairly easily, Liko is the least athletic one here, so she struggles a little bit, but she does just about manage to make it on just as the ship pulls away from the port. Dot is running for her life, but quickly gets cornered again by Spinel's Pokemon. He uses the communicator chips on his Pokemon to talk with Dot, but Spinel's not here for chit-chat, so he doesn't waste much time before calling for an Electro Ball. Dot panics, not knowing how to react, and Quaxly pays the price for it. Spinel is disappointed that Dot isn't really putting up much of a fight, and yeah, this is looking pretty bad. When he goes for the kill shot, look who shows up at just the right time. Yep, Liko and Roy are here to save the day, and Spinel wastes no time trash-talking Liko, taunting her by asking if she wants her memories erased again. Spinel is pretty confident about this situation, but our heroes aren't backing down without a fight. Liko demands her pendant be returned, but when Spinel says he's just doing his job, Roy knows he must be part of the Explorers. What happens next is the clip I played at the start of this video. They went all in on the animation for this part, as Liko, Roy, and Dot make a stand together and challenge Spinel to a battle. This was pretty epic and dramatic, at least visually, although the wind was pretty crazy. Like, I thought it kind of made them look silly with the way their clothes were billowing in the wind. Before we can actually start this exciting battle, we cut to the other members of the Rising Voltacklers trying to track them down. They figure out that they must be aboard another ship, and Freed is worried for their safety. Back aboard this mystery cargo ship, Spinel taunts them some more before using a Psychic plus Electro Ball combo attack. Quaxly takes the hit head on, and I was actually really surprised Quaxly never got KO'd in this episode. After Spinel launches another combo attack, Liko has Sprigatito use Leafage to swallow up the attack as well as do some damage to Spinel's Pokemon. And they're fired up that they managed to counter the Psycho Electro Ball. Now it's our hero's turn to go on the offensive as Liko calls for a quick attack while Quaxly sends a water gun straight into Behem. Roy is quick to follow up with an Ember, but Magneton dodges by flying high enough into the sky. Roy calls in Wattrel to help them in the air, and Wattrel actually uses Fuecoco to jump off, which upsets the Fire Croc so much so that it sends a powerful Ember attack towards Wattrel, but it gets out of the way at the last second, so the Ember drills Magneton instead. Roy's Pokemon start fighting after this, which isn't great, but Dot is too busy being blown away by what an actual Pokemon battle is like. She's surprised, but in a good way, because this is crazy fun, and I agree. Dot even starts trash-talking Spinel, and now that they've defeated Magneton and Behem, they want Liko's pendant back. Spinel doesn't even acknowledge this, instead calling for Umbreon to use Snarl. Sure enough, Spinel's ace has taken to the battlefield, and even when Dot tries to meet it head-on with a water gun, it's no match. Snarl completely overpowers them. This causes Spinel to get all overconfident again, but for whatever reason, Liko starts thinking about her pendant again at this moment and yells out to it, saying she's going to save it. I guess the pendant reacted to this. It starts setting off all kinds of energy and light, basically blinding Spinel and forcing him out of the van with the pendant as well. He drops the case with the pendant, and just as it's finally loose, Sprigatito jumps in to grab it, reuniting the pendant with Liko. Spinel isn't done fighting just yet though, and his Umbreon charge at Liko directly, but since Liko is back in possession of her pendant, you know some crazy stuff is about to go down. So much light energy is getting set off here, even Freed has managed to track down the ship. It turns out that all this light was coming from Arboliva's Pokeball, as it actually comes out from the Pokeball to protect Liko. Spinel is rattled at the sight of this Titan, all he can do is laugh and be amazed by it. However, now is not the time to stand and stare because Arboliva doesn't exactly have its happy face on. Umbreon knows it's time to run, and Spinel wisely retreats. This was kind of an awkward transition in my opinion, like I guess they all just let Spinel go even though he was stuck on this cargo ship, and everyone else floats away on Arboliva. I really would have thought they would just have pressed Spinel more since they had him cornered, but oh well. Everyone's happy and relieved as they float away, and meanwhile Spinel is feeling some type of way. He's some mix of awestruck and deranged because of what he just saw, but he now knows the true power of the pendant and recognizes that Liko is the key to activating that power. Some time passes as we get to the last couple of scenes for this episode. The Bravasagi is finally taken off towards Galar, but Liko is feeling mixed emotions about this whole ordeal. Dot comes to join her friend outside, and the two of them awkwardly stumble their way through this conversation. Quaxly pushes Dot to just come out and say it already, so Dot thanks Liko for coming to save her, and likewise Liko thanks Dot for coming to save her in the last episode. Dot's not done yet though. Whoa, it's confession time, and Dot starts off by apologizing to Liko, and then has this word salad that's going absolutely nowhere and just ends up confusing Liko. Eventually, Dot gets to the point, and it looks like she's about to confess about being Nidothing, but Liko cuts her off to be like, oh yeah, you're a huge fan, and nope, Dot isn't having any of that this time. She builds up her courage one last time, and just comes out and admits that she is Nidothing. There's a brief pause to let that sink in, and then it actually hits Liko. Yeah, I know why she's freaking out so much. It's because bingo, we just hit the first tile of the Elite Trainer Mark Pokemon Horizons bingo game. Liko has finally figured out that Dot is Nidothing, and honestly, I did not expect this to happen so soon. I thought we would be keeping this comedic gag going for a long time, way more than just 16 episodes. Unfortunately, that's all the reaction we get to see in this episode, as the scene changes to another Explorers meeting, Sans and Methio. We get to see all the other admins or executives in this scene though, including this one who's just a kid. She teases Spinel while another one has a more calm and collected response. Lastly, this woman questions Spinel, but he's not saying anything else. Hammer decides to call off the meeting then and there, and all the others dissipate away thanks to whatever weird technology they're using. Spinel steps back out into the cargo boat that I guess he's still on, and like any good villain, he can't help himself from monologuing his evil intentions, and he basically basically admits that he's withholding information from the other members of the Explorers because he wants to keep pursuing Liko and the pendant himself. This is usually where I'd fade to black and say that's where the episode ends, but I have to point out something that happened at the ending. They added Dot. Alright, now we can get to the discussion section of the video. Alright, let's kick things off by revisiting the question I asked at the beginning of this video. Was this the best episode of Horizons so far? Well, I think a lot of people are going to say yes because of how action-packed this one was, along with the tease of the new Explorers characters. Me personally, well, I definitely loved it as well, I can assure you of that. As far as my rating goes, I'm giving this episode an 8.5 out of 10 rating. That's tied for the highest rating I've given an episode so far, alongside episodes 1 and 3. While this episode no doubt had the best action all throughout, that's just one factor in any given episode. And while action was this episode's biggest highlight, it also brought strong character moments and some pretty emotional scenes. These mostly centered around Dot, and I especially loved the awkwardness involved in her confessing to Liko. That was the perfect balance of silly and serious in my opinion. Some of you may be wondering why I'm not rating this episode higher, so let me be critical for a moment. Otherwise, I'm just going to gush about how much I enjoyed this episode the whole time. I wasn't surprised by anything that happened, so this episode didn't give me that shocking or extremely hype feeling that would make me consider giving the episode a 10 out of 10. Instead, Dot catching Quaxly was kind of a given and almost like an afterthought in a way, since they just had it happen at the start of the episode without giving us time to build up to the moment, and then they just quickly moved on. Later, when Arbeliva came out and saved the day, that didn't surprise me because I have been theorizing that Liko's team, if you want to put it that way, in this series is going to be Lucius's Pokemon. I don't think Liko is going to catch any Pokemon besides Sprigatito, at least not anytime soon, but instead she's going to be able to call on the Ancient Adventurer's Pokemon in her times of need. I don't think I had fully articulated that in a video before. I usually save that kind of speculation for my Discord server, where I am always happy to talk about the Pokemon anime even more than I already do in these videos. Since I basically think Liko is a descendant of Lucius, it just kind of clicked to me that Liko is going to use his old Pokemon in special moments, which is exactly what happened in this episode. Don't get me wrong, it was still a really cool moment, but maybe it just didn't have that wow factor for me since I kind of saw it coming. Anyways, I said I was going to be critical, and let me finish picking on small details by pointing out things like Spinel's escape plan, if we can even call it that. I still don't really understand the reasoning for Spinel not running away immediately. I cannot think of what he was possibly stalling for time for, like the cargo ship he eventually used to flee and get away didn't have anyone else on it as far as I could tell, so couldn't he have just left on the boat the second that he had stolen the pendant? And then it just seems so weird to me at the end of the episode when they just let Spinel go so easily. I mean, Fried was happy to threaten this rando earlier in the episode, but when they had Spinel cornered, outnumbered, and dead to rights, they just willingly left his ship and allowed Spinel to get away scot-free. Weird. So those are the reasons why this episode only gets an 8.5 rating from me. Just a reminder that an 8.5 is the highest rating I have given out so far in Horizons, and in general, I adored this episode. So let's shift our focus to the positives now. I said in my last review that Dot is my favorite character in Horizons, and this episode just backed that up. It's weird seeing Nidothing, who is super book smart about Pokemon, lose that facade, and we're left with Dot, a shy girl who is unsure of herself and is actually a complete rookie trainer. But she did prove herself to be pretty competent despite her lack of experience. Of course, a large part of that is down to Quaxly, who not only shines as a confident and prideful Pokemon on its own, but also because it draws out the best in Dot, whether in battle or out of battle. Clearly, it was only because of Quaxly's prodding that Dot was finally willing to open up to Liko so much, and watching these two interact was great. I definitely am not shipping these two. I don't ship any Pokemon characters for that matter, but I have already seen those comments start to show up in my videos, so I have no doubt that this episode will just add fuel to that fire. How about Spinel then? He ultimately failed in his mission to steal the pendant, but he definitely left an impact on the show. It's kind of strange that Amethio is still marketed as the main villain, but we haven't seen him in ages, and I feel like most people just find Spinel to be more interesting anyways. Spinel may have been called a coward by multiple people in this episode, including his own teammates, but more on them in a minute. His cautious, tactical nature is not something we're used to seeing in a villain, although his subtle methods started to fall apart pretty quickly once our heroes were all together to confront him in battle. But with that said, it did seem like Umbreon would have easily gotten the job done 3-on-1 had Arbeliva not intervened, so maybe I'm not giving Spinel enough credit. I think seeing his maniacal side come out was especially notable, and now I feel like both Spinel and Amethio are willing to work against the Explorers for their own selfish gain. I can't believe these bad guys aren't more loyal to this mysterious Master Gibeon. The end of this episode introduced us to the rest of the Explorers admins, or executives, or whatever title they hold, and they each seem like interesting characters at first glance. Since we know almost nothing about them though, I'm gonna reserve my judgments for now, but I will predict that this guy's name is definitely getting changed in the dub. No way is he gonna keep the name Onix when there's already a Pokemon named Onix. The last thing I want to discuss about this episode is the interactions between Roy's Pokemon. I made fun of Fuecoco early on in the episode for wanting to fly like Charizard, but maybe Fuecoco could fly with some help from Wattrel. Issue is, these two are on fighting terms by the end of the episode, and it looks like that's going to continue into the next episode. The preview made it seem like the episode is going to be all about Fuecoco and Watchro working through their issues, and it should be a good one. I value these transitional phases of Horizons where the Rising Voltacklers are just spending time in the Brave Asagi just as much as I value the more climactic episodes like this week's. They all go hand in hand to contribute to the series overall. With all of that said, I have gone on and on in this video, making this easily my longest review of any Horizons episode thus far. That's probably a good thing actually, because this week I'm doing something special and making a Discord exclusive video where I show the entire behind the scenes process for how I make my episode reviews. So I go into painstaking detail about how I create videos like this one, and believe me when I say there is a lot of effort that goes into making a video like this. Be sure to leave a like on this video if you did enjoy it, subscribe if you haven't already, and thanks so much for watching this whole video. I know I prefer more thorough long form content on YouTube, and I try to deliver that in my content as well, especially since a lot of people's episode reviews are usually brief. But if this outro is anything to go by, I am clearly terrible at being concise, so I'm just going to cut myself off right now. I'll see you guys next time.